Hello, everyone. I was talking for a second and I was muted, but I'm live now and I'm unmuted. So this is my first live back in a long time, and I'm glad to be back doing it. And tonight we're going to be discussing Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein, along with the NBA's gambling scandal, along with a few other things as well. And hopefully, I might have some panel guests to come along with me to join in on the discussion. And we've got Amber, the moderator in chat, ATS News, whose panel I often go up on. She's a very good host and really good true crime channel. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start off with an intro, a kind of as a background on Prince Andrew and his childhood growing up, which I know a lot about. Only kind of started studying the royal family and their lives and them as a people, as people, after the scandal to do with him and Epstein really came out. I looked into them related to Jimmy Savile, because Jimmy Savile, a notorious paedophile and entertainer from the UK, was very close with the royal family. So I looked into their relationship, but nowhere near as deep as I have with Andrew, or since Andrew, because of Andrew. And what I know about Andrew is a lot. He lost his virginity, by all accounts, at 13 to an adult female who was working at one of the palaces. This has been alleged. So to give context, that that's abuse. You know what I mean? And it doesn't excuse what he did, but it can give an insight as to why, in his mind, he may think it would be okay to be with young girls, because in his mind he was with an older woman when he was a young boy, and he, in his mind, probably said that was a good experience. You know what I mean? That's what he thought. You know what I mean? And that's because of the abuse. You know what I mean? His mind's clouded, and he's never confronted it. And this has been said by reliable sources, people who are close in that orbit would know. So this is very interesting. And another interesting dimension to his childhood is, hi Clover, good to see you. And yeah, another interesting dimension to Andrew's childhood is he basically was the Queen's favorite, because when she had Charles, who was the first, she was very young and very busy being a queen, and didn't have the time to really take time and be with him as a child and raise him like an ordinary mother. But she certainly took that time and took time off for Andrew, and that's why he became the favorite. And although he is the spur, which means that he was obviously, Charles was directly in line, and if something happened to Charles before Charles had kids, Andrew would be the king. Obviously, that's not going to happen anymore, but that was, in theory, what could have happened. But he was her favorite, yeah, and a lot of people don't know that. It's quite an insider thing until recently. But he was her favorite. He got everything he wanted. He got a car that was like electric, you know what I mean? Like in the style of James Bond, that was made especially for him. He got absolutely everything he wanted. And as a result of that, developed, I think, a personality where he felt he was above everyone and everything. I mean, of course, if you're a royal, there's going to be the tendency where you do think that, because constitutionally, technically speaking, they are in the UK and the Commonwealth countries like Canada and Australia and New Zealand and other places, Pakistan, India. I'm pretty sure they're still in the Commonwealth. They might not be, but I'm pretty sure they still are. Yeah, but places like that, so they have this status where in the law they are above reproach for a lot of things. Their taxes aren't scrutinized, their assets aren't scrutinized, they can't be really critiqued in a personal way in Parliament. It has to be very much about when discussing the monarchy in the British Parliament, it has to be like questions as to whether maybe we should keep it going. But there can be never any naming of them and saying something like, "Oh, they take up all this money," naming them directly, because that would be considered derogatory and there'd be, the Speaker of the House would object to it and demand that it would be withdrawn. So democracy in Britain is a very interesting concept, because on the one hand you have a monarch, and I don't think any real sane person can think that monarchy and democracy can go hand in hand. It's an illusion. You can't have people that are above the law in a system that's supposed to be democratic, meaning that everyone is, in theory, subject to the same laws and the same regulations and whatever. So back to my point, that status, afforded to him from birth, of course, is going to give a level of arrogance. But I think that the level in him was more so than in any of the others of recent time. The way he treat his staff. You know what I mean? Ex-members of his protection team. Butlers, nannies to his kids, any kind of palace person who's worked around him always says that Andrew is just an evil, horrible man, just demanding, insulting, ungrateful, won't even acknowledge any good work, any good effort, any hard work. Completely just, I think, looks at his staff like they're maggots, you know what I mean? And just trash. And I think that he looks at anyone who isn't, in establishment circles in that way. I think a lot of them do have those perceptions to a degree, but he will outright say it, you know what I mean, in front of people. He's never cared, because his thing was he could always get away with everything because he was the Queen's favourite. So no one would ever call him out on anything ever. No one would complain. No one would do anything. So this untouchable feeling, this feeling of I'm completely beyond reproach, nothing can stop me, that creates a certain personality type where if, he had this experience of losing his virginity when he was so young to an adult woman, that creates a perception in his mind that a warped perception of sex, you know what I mean, because he never got any therapy for it and didn't see it as a negative thing when it was, you know what I mean, and a damaging thing that affected the way he'd look at life and other people, I think that is combined together created him as a sexual predator, and that's what we're going to get into more now. And his introduction to to Ghislaine Maxwell was because of her father, Robert Maxwell, who is a very rich and powerful man who died in a very mysterious way, a lot like Jeffrey Epstein did. He owned newspapers, and he was also believed to be involved in MI6 and the Mossad, the Israeli security forces, and MI6 being the British form of the CIA, essentially, for the Americans who are here. Basically, Ghislaine Maxwell's father was the linkage. He was very in tight with the British establishment, so he would have probably been the person who initiated the first meeting between. Oh yes, Amber. His death was mysterious. Robert Maxwell's. It's been rumored that he was killed by an intelligence agency, whether that was MI6 or Mossad or another one. It's up for debate, but it's believed that he was basically killed for either knowing too much or fulfilling his uses, you know what I mean, as an agent, and essentially bumped off on his boat, you know what I mean, in a very, very suspicious scenario, you know what I mean. Obviously, cause of death has been disputed, but in my view, he was assassinated, and that means, yeah, exactly. It's a bit. Hi, Johnny. It's good that you could join us, and everyone else who's watching and joining. I'm glad that you could make it. But yeah, his death was incredible. Hi, Alex. So glad you could make it, and I really enjoyed your live earlier, and I've been enjoying a lot of your content lately. And thank you so much for sharing my link out and saying to ATS News Amber, because you know, I don't think I'd have even gotten one view if you hadn't have helped me out in that way, because I've been off for so long. But I really appreciate you and everyone here. It's really great. But back to what I was saying, Maxwell's death, Robert Maxwell, was incredibly suspicious. And prior to his death, he was very much a part of the British establishment, and he would have been the catalyst, the person behind Ghislaine and Andrew meeting, because it wasn't Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein who met first. He knew Ghislaine, and they even dated for a brief time back before he met Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife. And they dated, Andrew and Ghislaine. So that's how he was introduced to Jeffrey, because of Ghislaine, because he dated Ghislaine in the past, and then Ghislaine was with Jeffrey, and they would, go on to, shooting weekends and travel the world and party, you know what I mean? Which is odd, because Andrew claims he doesn't drink, and most people who know him say they haven't seen him have a drink. So I don't know what a guy who doesn't drink can really do to party, you know what I mean? Because it's bizarre to me, like, I don't understand the appeal of going to nightclubs if you don't drink. You know what I mean? I don't understand what's he getting out of all of this? You know what I mean? Like, and I think the bottom line was he was getting sex. You know what I mean? With young women and underage girls, who potentially underage girls and young women were consent. Was very, very questionable. Exactly, Amber, a sober man around drunk women, around drunk, young, vulnerable, impressionable women who would see him as a prince. And if he tried something on with them, some women find it difficult to turn a man down. But imagine turning a prince down. You know what I mean? Like, if a woman already has trouble, saying no and asserting herself, then imagine that with a prince. You know what I mean? Especially a young girl, you know what I mean? Or a young woman who's already in a really bad situation where she's being trafficked. How can they say no? You know what I mean? When you've got someone that powerful coming onto you, and you've got all this pressure from this guy who, like, who's made you feel like you're indebted to him, Jeffrey. You know what I mean? And he even paid Virginia allegedly 15 grand. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'll get to the first meeting. The first alleged meeting between Virginia Giuffre and Jeffrey Epstein, Virginia Giuffre and Andrew, was at Tramp's nightclub in London. And apparently Epstein paid Virginia 15 grand to have sex with him. And obviously that's when that famous picture was taken of them with his hand around her waist. It was taken in Ghislaine Maxwell's flat in her apartment in London. And that's been proven, her old one. And that's where the alleged abuse took place. And I wouldn't, exactly, Amber, no one turns down a prince. And that's his mentality, you know what I mean? I don't think he could even conceive that a woman could turn him down, someone of his status and his power. You know what I mean? Especially in the UK, where that is written into law, that he has this status because he's part of this family. It's unimaginable, especially, but the first meeting was at Tramp's, and it was very suspicious because, like I say, Andrew says he doesn't drink, so why is he going to a nightclub? He wouldn't need to. He has country homes, private gentlemen's clubs, all kinds of white glove Freemason type shit that he could, take people to and just have a chat. You know what I mean? Where there aren't other people around. You know what I mean? Where people can be served drinks if he needs to. Why is he going there? And I think it's part of drunk women around, but also it's so that he can disarm Virginia, so that he can make these girls feel less intimidated because they're in a place that isn't like what a place I just described, like a private members club or a royal country estate. Obviously, he wouldn't want that kind of riffraff going around, that kind of philandering going around in a place that's so official. However, you know, private members clubs, anything goes in those places, like the Freemasons and all kinds of other, like the Athenaeum Club. There's all the there's clubs like that in America, but in Britain, you know, there's far less of them, and the people there are far more tied to power directly. You know what I mean? So, especially in London, you know what I mean? Hi, Jen Lou. Hi, LG. Point of love for everyone coming in. And back to hi, EE Caroline. Great to see you. And Maine, one of my favorite states in America. Great place to go, Maine. So rural, so like green. You know, it's very much like Britain or Ireland, rural Britain or Ireland. I can see why the settlers liked it so much. But back to topic. The first meeting at Tramps, Andrew allegedly got her a drink, Virginia, and she'd already been told, "Oh, you're going to meet a prince." And it's really sad because she says in her book, like, she grew up watching The Little Mermaid and all Cinderella and all the fairy princess things. So when she heard that she was meeting a prince, she thought Andrew would be like a gentleman, you know, and treat her really nicely, as opposed to the way she'd been treated by other guys that Epstein had brought in. Like, she was completely taken aback, you know what I mean, by the way he was, you know, like apparently, like, at first in the nightclub he was flirty and dancing and quite charming, but the second he got back to the apartment, his demeanor completely changed and he became very commanding, pushy, and just like detached, almost like mentally and emotionally detached, like there was nothing there, like a complete robot almost, which is terrifying. It sounds like the guy clearly has a lot of issues, and has clearly compartmentalized all this to a point where I think even he's deluded himself to a point where he thinks that none of this actually happened. But I'm very confident that this did happen, you know, that he did take advantage of her, you know what I mean? Knowing the situation, knowing she was young, knowing she was vulnerable, knowing the type of girls that Giuffre had hanging around for his parties, you know what I mean? Knowing exactly what it all meant. And it's horrific, you know, that he did that, you know what I mean? That allegedly, I have to say, allegedly did that, but I think he did. I'm allowed to have an opinion. I believe he did, but I'm not saying it as a matter of fact, legally speaking, anyway. Because we all know the power that the royal family and the crown have, you know. So, and obviously, and this gets into, you know, that was the ordeal, and this didn't just happen. And exactly, no sweat glands, Andy, is gross, and that's the point. You can Virginia says she was sweating that night in the nightclub, and there's also pictures of him past the Falklands War of him sweating, him with sweaty pits, disgusting. So it's all a lie. All this stuff that he had a rush of adrenaline in the Falklands and that it caused a shock of his hair to go grey and that he can't sweat anymore is a major, major lie. That is absolute nonsense. Yes, he was in the Falklands. Yes, he saw active combat. But let's be real here. It was the Falklands War. He was in the Navy. He was nearly torpedoed. A lot of people were nearly torpedoed. And out of all the British servicemen who fought in the Falklands, I don't think many of them don't have the ability to sweat anymore. I think if you talk to any of ex-servicemen, I think that they would find the whole concept of this nonsense and absolutely laughable. You know what I mean? Because it's nonsense. This was in the Falklands War where he said this happened, which was, you know, he was in. There was a situation where he was nearly torpedoed, but like I say, that happened to everyone else who was in that war. You know what I mean? And I've never heard anyone who I've known who have served in any kind of conflict to talk about them not being able to sweat anymore. I've heard him about PTSD, about things that stress can do, but never have I heard that it can stop someone to sweat. You know what I mean? I've never heard that. It's just completely, and he's using his military service, which is something to be proud of and respected of, to try and deflect what he's done. And you'll hear that a lot, like, oh, his military service, but like, it doesn't give him the right to go and do what he likes and take advantage of young women, you know what I mean, and young girls. So, and make the entire UK look bad by extension, you know what I mean? Make the royal family and the whole state look horrific, as well. And exactly, it doesn't. The other poppycock, that is the interview he gave, proved it. It was laughable, and his excuses. Exactly. It was. The thing is, he thought that went well with Emily Maitlis. The interview he did with Emily Maitlis initially, when the scandal that really broke, when it became a problem for him. It broke back in 2010. Pictures of him and Giuffre, but we'll get to that. Yeah, that interview he did was awful. He thought that by talking about, I couldn't, nothing possibly could have happened on my watch because I was the head of a charity of preventing abuse of children, and all this nonsense. It's like, yeah, well, like, lots of people who are in positions of trust abuse that position of trust. You know what I mean? And and when they're in a position where they're not, no one's supposed to do it, but where you'd think they wouldn't do that, especially, you know what I mean? So it's a real cop out, and it's really ugly. And yeah, he's so deluded that in his mind. Hi Alex, good to see you.
Hey,
Glad you could
I don't
join
know
us.
much about this, but I had to come up at least for a minute. I probably won't stay long because we're doing bedtime, but just because, you're just getting back to streaming, I wanted to be here to support you.
Thank you so much.
I don't know nothing about this though. You'll have to, I'm here to listen and learn, but with Epstein, like, I guess because I know it's hard to talk about on YouTube anyways, right? Like, it's always, I don't know. I just never looked into it too much. I guess I never thought I would find the facts. And it's also like kind of a topic that can be hard to discuss. I'm interested in it. I'm definitely interested, but I don't think, well, I don't know. I'm worried we'll never get the facts of it. So, and I don't know too much about Virginia. I know she was just on The View though. Did you see that?
I did. I saw them discuss the whole situation, and I think they were particularly interested in what she had to say about Trump, which I found interesting as well. And
Yeah.
it is interesting, that none of them mentioned that he was like, of the main accusers that are coming forward, that he was like ever like involved, you know what I mean? But like, what I
Right.
think about him not wanting to release the list, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I, not to get political, but I have a lot of respect for her, for breaking rank almost
Oh yeah,
from her
she
party.
has. She's
and
went
and
against her whole party. Yeah.
and everyone's, mainly right-wing people, when it used to be left-wing people calling for her head. It's mainly, people within the Republican
Right.
Party, and she's making a lot of good arguments. And she was on the BBC, and they asked her, like, why do you think he won't release the list? And like, I think it's because there are donors of his who are on that. That's why.
Mm.
And that's what he's worried about. And it's them who are putting immense pressure on him to not do that, and to say, look, Donald, if you do this, we'll bring you down with us. We'll just say you were involved when there's a Democrat administration, and they'll love it, and they'll want your head on a stick, and we'll manipulate that whole situation. So I think that's it's deep,
Yeah.
and it's
It's
complex,
super
but
deep. Yeah.
I get the feeling it's something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
I do
it's
too. I think you're right. I was surprised because at a point you thought there would be nothing that they would go against Trump on. Some of these Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene was one of his biggest supporters. Like,
Oh yeah,
so I don't know. I have a lot of respect for that as well. There's a lot of shit she's done in the past I don't necessarily agree with, but on
yeah,
this one, I can get behind it.
yeah. Her and Thomas Massey as well. He's a lesser known Republican representative, but
Yeah,
both of them, he's like, I really support what they're doing, and also the Democrats, like, who are pushing for it as well, for it to be released. I think that those representatives are the true representatives of what the American people, I think, what the world wants. You know what I mean?
agree. Well, you know what? Marjorie also went against a lot of her side when it comes to Israel, and
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm so thankful. I cannot believe that so many people are okay with what's happened in Gaza. I don't want to. Maybe people disagree with me. I don't. I think Netanyahu is just a loon and a crazed maniac. That's where I'm at with it. And
Oh,
he,
I
yeah,
I completely agree with you, and like I am sensitive about going too deep on that topic because, like, I know I have a lot of American viewers, and I know
yeah, that's
America's
okay.
relationship with Israel is kind of different than Britain's, even though Britain founded Israel,
Right.
with the Balfour Declaration in
Yep.
1948. Uh,
Yep.
Despite that, Britain's I feel like criticism uh, to British people about Israel is it's more easy, and in Ireland, forget about it. No one really likes Israel there, and
You are so right. People get very sensitive, and it's because of the religious aspect. And, I've tried to remind people that just remember, and we can get off of this, but,
no,
you
we don't
might
need
feel,
to. It's important. It's relevant to what I'm discussing because I've already discussed Mossad, and there's
well,
things that I've heard from and like Epstein in general. Look, sorry, finish what you were going to say. I don't mean to cut you off.
no, that's okay. I was just going to say that, your religion may tell you that you should support Israel. That doesn't mean you need to support their government. You know what I
True,
mean? The
true.
man who's running the country, how does he encompass all of what Israel is and what that place means as a holy land? So just,
Mm.
there's more to it than it goes
Oh,
deeper than that.
I completely agree, and I think a lot of American Christian Zionists like forget
Hmm.
the fact that there are a lot of Christians in Gaza, and when Israel bombs
Yes.
Gaza, it's even they bombed a Catholic church and Catholics died. You know what I mean? These are Christians, and
Yes.
if you're a Christian, you should care that Christians are being killed. You should care that everybody's being killed, but Christians are being
Yes.
killed in the Holy Land. And there's a very like powerful image of Christian youth in Israel, Israeli Christians, and there's many of them as well. Uh,
Right.
and they were rioting in the late 2000s in Jerusalem because they'd been denied access to pray by the IDF because of like
Mm,
basically martial law that they brought in. And
right.
that what you said is very true. Like the Netanyahu government is symptomatic of extreme Zionism, something that Israel, even the state of Israel, which is, was founded essentially by Zionists for Zionists,
Yeah.
but then changed to be for all Jews and more encompassing depending on the administration. But
Right.
initially, Israel was quite a liberal Zionist country where, there would be discrimination against Arabs, but nowhere near the level you see it now.
Right.
There was dialogue when there was a left-wing government in Israel, and I don't know that's exactly the solution to the problem, but I know that him being in power isn't the solution. But on the other hand,
Oh.
I also understand people's not wanting Hamas to be
Yeah,
in government in
absolutely.
Gaza,
Yeah.
and
But the
that's part of
propaganda.
exactly that's part of but that's the agreement that Trump should have made, that Netanyahu stands down and
Right.
Hamas
Yes.
stand down as
They
the
are.
government.
Oh my gosh.
And there's new
Yes.
elections and new people with new ideas who aren't bent on war come in. Because I've done research and it's rumored that Israel and Netanyahu's camp had a lot to do with the funding of and the setting up of Hamas to compete with the
Uh,
Muslim Brotherhood in Gaza, because the Muslim Brotherhood, who are like more of a fraternal organization as opposed to a military organization, they're more
right.
of a political, lobbying movement as opposed to a militant group.
Correct.
They're
Yeah.
banned in some countries, and in other countries they're not. But they are seen as less extreme than Hamas. So they funded a group that, and also other groups like the PLFP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, who are a kind of Marxist, far left, kind of secular, non-religious Muslim. Like, they're Arab, but they're not Muslims.
Well,
You know what I mean?
didn't
They're
ISIS
atheists.
wasn't ISIS like a group formed off of the Muslim Brotherhood? Like it spun from that, and then that kind of spun into Hamas. Am I correct there, or no?
No,
Okay.
it's close though. But like, well, the ISIS was initially founded from a split in Al Qaeda, and
Was Al Qaeda formed from the Brotherhood?
no,
I
separate,
don't know why I
separate,
keep thinking it goes back to that.
separate. But
Okay.
ISIS were a splinter group from Al Qaeda in the early 2000s, and they were really small and tiny and never had any kind of relevance. But obviously, because of what the Taliban and Al Qaeda were doing, their
Yeah.
primacy took over in terms of the headlines they were grabbing with 9/11, with all the other
9/11. Yep.
with all the others, and that is a big thing. But like, relating it back to Israel, and I've always thought that Epstein was a Mossad agent and
Yep.
was,
A lot of people
and
do.
I'm not the only one who thinks that. A woman
No.
who's very close to Andrew, who used to date Andrew, who knows Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, Lady Victoria Hervey, who is a lady, and that's her official title, and she lives in LA now, but she has said that she thinks that she's quite defensive in a way of Andrew. I think it might be some kind of denialism, that she doesn't want to believe the worst in someone that she knew. But she says that she thinks that regardless, that he was entrapped, and it was a honey trap by possibly Israel to blackmail him, because the word on the street is that the royal family, the British royal family, especially the late Queen, didn't like Israel,
Oh,
didn't like the
interesting.
Israelis.
Wait, and what Epstein's dad? What did he do? Wasn't he a spy for Israel? Who
Oh
was
no,
he?
that was Ghislaine's dad.
Oh, okay.
That was Ghislaine Maxwell's
There's
dad.
like I
Yeah.
said, I don't know too much. I do watch a lot of political stuff, but when it comes to Epstein, I don't know as much about it. But I do try to keep up with what's going on, anyways, in the politics, and because the list and the demand for it, and freaking. What's her name, Bondi, saying,
Pam
"Oh,
Bondi.
it's
Yeah.
on my desk. Yeah, it's on my desk." But now it's, "Oh, but I hadn't looked at it. There is nothing. I didn't know. It was
It's
on my desk, but I just hadn't took a look at it yet. Taking a
it's
look
a
at it."
total cop out. These scandals have happened in so many other countries as well. One happened in Belgium. In the 90s, where it was really bad, where members of their kind of aristocracy, their elites, were linked to a castle that they'd all go and visit, and there would be abuse taking place, and it got so bad that there were bodies, and that they were pinning it on people, killers, people who committed murders, but people who hadn't committed those murders, if you understand what I'm saying, to
Right.
cover it up. And that nearly basically brought down their society in terms of their establishment and shook up their political system. But it was all swept up very carefully, because it happened in the 90s, before what
The
we have.
internet and
Yeah,
everything. Yeah. It's
absolutely. Before the
crazy.
internet became widespread, and you couldn't bury
Yeah.
shit. You could bet you could bury shit then. You can't do it now as well. You can
No.
still do it to a degree in certain places, sure. And manipulate the media, sure, and perception, sure. But to outright bury something big,
Yes,
uh,
you're right.
no, not in the West, not anymore. But then, obviously, it's a lot easier, But it's strange. But like I said, I think, like Epstein, his island, Little St. James, the rooms were fitted with audio, video equipment, and these powerful men like Andrew, who did visit Little St. James in Virginia, says that an incident happened in London, as well as on the island, and as well as in New York. But on the island, Andrew came in, committed the acts with her, allegedly, the abuse, allegedly, and was videotaped and filmed. And then Epstein had him by the balls, so to speak. And it further proves
Right.
this when, after Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife, spoke out and said Epstein's a bad guy after he was arrested initially for, soliciting a minor for sex in late 2000s, early 2010. And she said, like, condemned him, said he was a bad guy. Then he wrote to her, Epstein wrote to Sarah Ferguson in a email saying, "I'll ruin you and your daughters and your family." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because he could say that, because he had them.
Because he had the
Because he
videos.
had them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was
he
that
had
the
them.
whole purpose of videotaping that? So just to have it for blackmail of all these powerful people?
Yeah, yes, that's
Mm.
it. That's just it for blackmail. It's not for him. Maybe there's an element that he likes to watch it and get off to.
Right.
I wouldn't pull that past him, because he was a sick perv, and sick pervs do sick pervy things. But like, I think uh, he, I think he was basically, uh, yeah, he was videotaped doing it so that Andrew would pull for Epstein, would stick up for him, would enable him to do things in the UK, but would also pursue, I think, a pro-Israel agenda. And I think
Interesting.
that's it. And I think that that's been done to politicians and other people. I think that Epstein wasn't just doing this for his own; he was under orders. I think he was recruited by Mossad, and they said, "Look, we know you're into this sort of thing, and you can still do it and get away with it, but also we need you to make friends with these people that you're good at making friends with anyway, Jeffrey, and you're helping, keep these uh, guys who we need on side, and you're doing this for your country and your people. You're a hero." You know what I mean? And I think that that
Right.
would be a massive boost to that
To the
guy's
ego,
ego.
right? Yeah.
He was
Um,
already an egomaniac.
oh my gosh, that's so interesting. But yeah, I could see how that would boost the ego. Now, I don't want to like change your subject. It's not change the subject,
Not
it's
at all.
Israel. But I gotta ask you, like October 7th, Israel is one of the most secured countries on the earth. They have constant guards around the perimeter. It's a small country. They have the dome, they are because they're in the Middle East of a bunch of other countries who hate them, right? So
Yep.
they are always why on October 7th did they call off the security on the border?
Because they wanted it to happen. I knew it was absolutely. As I knew what you were thinking. It's very relevant. It's They wanted it to happen. I knew it at the time, because that Hamas team, that cell that did that incident, they didn't have, like, you know, uh, radar scrambling gear technology. They
Right.
had
Yeah.
dusty old AKs. They
Yeah.
had some grenades that were Soviet era at best, and
Exactly.
you know they just walked right on in there. And you don't do that, like what you said. It has the Iron Dome, checkpoints,
Yeah.
radar, CCTV, checkpoints everywhere. And that was a music festival in a place that was already a hotspot. Okay, so
Exactly.
from a security point of view, this is a place where there are settlers, where it's just especially very disputed land, point
Right.
of conflict. Here's a
Right.
large public gathering that would be perfect for insurgents to target. So
Exactly. It's
anyone
so
with half a
interesting.
brain, I'm not a security expert, but even I know, to have people on watching.
Yeah. Exactly. It makes no sense. And, people that ask questions, hell, Charlie Kirk is one of the people. And I didn't even, like, I disagree with him highly. I'm more left leaning, but I know that he was starting to ask those questions as well. I'm not playing into Israel did what happened to him. I'm just saying anyone who asks questions, like, you don't get very far with the questions. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And it's just really interesting to me that whole thing. Like, I didn't know. I've been down the Israel rabbit hole once I saw what was happening in Gaza and I was listening to independent people that doctors and people that weren't politically affiliated and with what was going on and the hospitals being bombed and these children starving and I fell down the rabbit hole and I became very interested in Israel. Like I didn't know the history like you were saying in the 40s, like now I know. that the land was basically just given to them. So whose was it before that? United Nations was part of that as well, right? But they were escaping what happened in Europe. Um, it's so interesting. Like, whose land was it before that? And no wonder they're fighting back and forth like
Mm,
this. You know?
exactly. It's a very people often try and compare it to Ireland, but in Ireland the division is one of national identity. It's not in like the Catholic or Protestant religions that either side is entitled to that country. You know what I mean? Whereas in
Yeah.
Judaism, they believe that
It's the
that it's
yes.
the promised land. But the thing is, there are sections of Judaism who completely reject that because they say that the state of Israel, which it is, a secular state, you know what I mean? The
Right.
law of Israel isn't the law of the Torah. There's things in the Torah that are very, very not good. You know what I mean?
Extreme. Yeah. And
That are allowed in Israel, like homosexuality isn't criminalized in Israel. It's legal to do it. There, you can't marry, but you can have They can have civil partnerships. But in the Torah, that's against
right.
Judaism. You know, but
Yeah.
that's not abortion as well. And it's like its laws don't reflect its claim that it is this big religious state because it isn't. That's its argument that all of its neighbors are these
Right.
religious states with this dogma, but Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. But
Yeah.
I would say that Lebanon is also a democracy and is also in the Middle East. You know what I mean? And
Right. And are they really? Because isn't their election been put off now because of the war? Like,
yes,
yeah.
yeah,
So
and
are
that's
they a democracy?
exactly. And the
Oh,
thing is, Israelis as a whole aren't as on board as Netanyahu and the press would want you to think that they are. Many of them are from a variety of backgrounds, from ultra religious who are refusing the draft on faith based grounds that, that their role in life in their head is to pursue their religion, not to
right.
fight some war, some
Right.
secular war, and die for a country that they don't feel that they're a part of anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not just Muslims in Israel and Christians who don't feel part of that state. It's Jews as well who are
Yeah.
not Zionists, who don't believe that the state should be run the way it is, that feel alienated and are
Oh, yeah.
voicing it now more than ever.
And
And
soldiers.
and soldiers as well. The
Yeah.
rates of suicide amongst IDF personnel and the rates of abandoning their posts as well is so high because they're I think America learned with the Vietnam War, you can't win a war with people who don't want to be there. You know,
Right.
they have to want to do it to be effective at doing it. It's like with anything, you know, uh, it's never going to be capable. America could have easily have won that war. Like if you watch Apocalypse Now, where Kurt said, if we had less men who actually wanted to be here, who were trained and disciplined, we could easily win this war. He was right. You know what I mean? It was lost
Right.
because there were so many people who wanted to be anywhere but there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Their
Yeah.
hearts and soul weren't in it. So how are they going to win?
Why
How
are
are they
they?
going to have that edge?
Why would they fight something that they don't even? It's not a fight they care about.
Exactly. It's
It's so
completely
interesting.
it's and that's the thing, and 9/11. I know Melissa Jade did a live years ago, but I still remember it because of how
Yeah.
powerful it was about 9/11 and how it impacted her and her thoughts about how we have been misled about it. And I
Oh
think
yeah.
Israel certainly knew it was going to happen. And I think, you can look at news reports that say it was the Israelis that passed it on to the Americans about in the late 90s and early 2000 about Osama bin Laden and Arab terrorists wanting to hijack planes. And
Oh
there's a
wow,
news
that's
report where
interesting.
the news reporter says that, and it's just that she just briefly goes over it, and then that happens years later. And I think, and obviously, there's the story of the dancing Israelis who were seen, videotaped, videotaping the attack and dancing and laughing about it, and then were
Mm.
stopped by U.S. Customs people and were interrogated and then quickly fled back to Israel. without saying too much. But I certainly think that they were watching that day, and I think that the governments knew at the time
Well,
and
we know
turned a blind eye.
yeah, the official narrative, they definitely did. The official, and we know the official narrative is not the truth, right? What we were
Mm.
told is not. But Melissa still covers that, but she had to move it to like her Patreon. So I mean, she has all of them, like 10-part series digging into every aspect. But and Tucker Carlson, he's another one I've not supported. When he was on Fox, he was such a
I agree.
oh, and he even in court, like he had people sue him, and he was like, your fault for believing me. You're a dumbass for even believing me, basically. But now that he's on his own, he's independent. He's been speaking out about Israel, number one, and asking
True.
really good questions. Which he interviewed Ted Cruz, and it was so good. He pressed him on Israel, but he also has spoke about that. What was it? Now I've lost my train of thought.
He's spoken about like Epstein,
No,
9/11.
yes, he has a okay, yeah. He has a thank you.
It's all
He
right.
has
I do it all
a
the time.
yeah, me too. And I've thought so much today. I think my brain's just like done. But yeah, he has a new series out on 9/11, and apparently, according to like Tess, who's a mod of mine, she said like 50% or more of what he showed she had never seen before. Like it is really good. A series on how it's not true what we were told. So
That's so interesting. I'll have to check that out. Thanks for telling me about it. And like, there's other attacks that I question. Like one that happened in the UK, which it's poignant actually. It's interesting to mention. There was a guy called Stuart Copeland who was the London nail bomber, and he
mhm.
was a member of a group called the National Socialist Movement. So he was a National Socialist, like what many would say a Nazi, a white supremacist, like not just the kind of casual one either, but like a committed,
Right.
violent one who was willing to, make bombs and shoot to get his,
Like
objective.
extreme.
Yeah, extreme as you can get, and he basically bombed around London to try and start a race war, and to create, tension between the races, like targeting black areas, targeted a gay bar, and like an Asian shops as well. And before he was caught, but on his first attack, um, very interesting. This happened in 1999. A shopkeeper on the day said like he saw Copeland like walk and put the bag down which had his bomb in, and then another man came along and saw the rucksack and thought someone's left this here and forgot about it. I'll put it in my car, keep it safe, and then I'll turn it in at the police station, so that anyone can deal with it. That was the story. But that shopkeeper saw men in like black ties, white shirts with sunglasses on the top of the roof of the complex, watching Copeland plant the bomb, and watching.
Making
Um,
sure it went the way it was supposed to go or
yes,
whatever. Oh my
absolutely.
gosh.
And it makes me think of the dancing Israelis. And the reason I think that MI5 allowed that to happen is because they were trying to bring in the Prevention of Terror Act in 2000, which gives the UK police like all kinds of powers to arrest people on the charge of prevention of terror, which is very flimsy, and it doesn't take a lot to get that charge, and then go through their phones, raid their house, have them in prison for up to 27 days. I think maybe even more than that, maybe even up to 48, maybe even 70 odd. It keeps getting extended to question them. You know what I mean? And this is often abused against citizen journalists and like people
Right.
whose opinions
Yeah.
they might not like, and all kinds of nasty stuff. But I think they did that because there was no terror threat in the UK at the time. There was the IRA had declared a ceasefire and was in negotiations, so weren't bombing London at the time, and that was before like Islamic terrorism really started in the West.
Right.
So there was no one really that they could get a response out of. But I think Copeland wasn't as extreme as he became, but I think someone got into his head and made him that, and made him more extreme, and encouraged him to do what he did. And I think that person was connected to the security forces. So he could have, wasn't obviously, he's not without blame, Stuart Copeland, but
Right.
he was certainly, I think, influenced. And I think that happens with attacks and with shootings across the world. The
You know what?
agencies,
It makes me think of Charlie Kirk. Like, it makes you wonder because that camera guy that came and grabbed that camera that was right on him, right behind him, was it? Yeah, right behind him. What
yeah,
if the guy that did it, somebody, what if there's more people behind the scenes than what we know? There's more of a, I don't want to say brainwashing, but whatever going on. That's so interesting to think about. I mean, it's certainly possible. I think that we want to think and believe that things are just like we're told, right? But in
absolutely.
reality,
It's a veil that I think that a lot of people create for themselves, because if you start to question things, you'll get down to such a rabbit hole that I think most people would be afraid to leave their own home, And
yeah,
I like Amber's talking about Candace Owens' theory on Charlie, and I'm basically in that boat too. I think Candace Owens is like has a lot of unique opinions, and I agree with some of them, disagree with others. But I think
right, same.
on this, she's quite on point. I think she knew him, and she was talking to him about Israel, and then he was
Yes.
talking about pressure he was getting from donors and stuff, and then he winds up dying. It just seems too coincidental to me. And members of his security detail were all ex-Israeli special forces, apparently.
Oh, I
So
didn't know that part, but I know
yeah,
she came back today and it's I'm right there with you. It's very interesting. So Candace, for me, I used to think like, oh God, no, not Candace Owens. Like the fact some of the I guess when I first started getting into politics and I was more extreme to the left, not
yeah,
extreme, but more, and seeing the way she would talk about like black people and stuff, it just like I didn't it turned me away, right? I'm like, ooh, come on, be proud of yourself. Like be proud of your like I felt like she was just so extreme on some of that stuff. And so, during Black Lives Matter, she wore the All Lives Matter t-shirt. Now I've shifted my views are more centered now, and
yeah.
I can definitely agree with a lot of her points. And her Charlie Kirk series, look, when it first started coming out, I paid attention from the beginning, but people were saying, no way, that's not true. She's crazy. She's just her conspiracies, and then boom, comes out what she said was true. Text messages come out and prove, boom, no, there was a meeting. He wasn't happy about the way that things were going and the pressure he was getting. And they're trying to twist it and make it look like something else. So I am paying very close attention to her on that for sure.
Same. And if anything happens to her, it's obviously not of her own doing. You know what I mean? Like she isn't suicidal. You know what I mean? And if anything happens to it, I think that would just put an exclamation mark on what she's been saying.
Oh, absolutely.
And it
Oh,
would
did you
make
see?
people. Sorry,
No, go ahead, finish. It would make
I think it would
people.
make people question more. The official narrative on things, on everything.
And she actually made a video that was like, if I do not want to take my own life, like I
True.
forget, how she worded it exactly, but it was along those lines. I'm not suicidal.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact she has to do that and has to say that, and that we know it's not.
Crazy.
It's not because she's mentally ill, because she isn't. It's the reality of the world we live in. You go up against powerful
Oh
people and
yeah.
powerful voices. You're running the risk there. You know what I mean? It's dangerous, and I think people who are speaking out like her and like you and like me and like everyone who is.
Share.
Yeah, shares in chat. Yeah, it's great. Shares great. She's got a good true crime channel as well. Her and Mark, sometimes joins her on the live. She's really cool as well, and it's just great there. It's a lot like Alex's and Amber's, because it's like unfiltered, raw opinions, and all opinions are welcome there. Cher doesn't run a cult, you know what I mean? Neither does Alex, neither do I, and Cher will be up on panels shortly, which is great. So that's a great thing. But yeah, that's what I like about your channels, and I hear that from a lot of other
Thank
people in the
you.
YouTube streets, that you're all very authentic, and that you allow discussion and discourse to happen in your chat, and it's refreshing, because so many others just are like, you have to think, my way, or you're not allowed here, and
I can't stand that. Oh,
yeah, if someone was in here and said like, I don't agree with what you're saying about Israel, then I wouldn't want them blocked. You know what I mean? I would want them to
yeah.
say what they want to say and
Let's
say
talk
why.
about it.
Yeah, I want them to say it and why they think that. Like, we don't learn anything and we don't grow if we just live in an echo chamber. And that's what I've learned. It's easy to do it. But you've got to challenge yourself. If you really believe in your own convictions, it shouldn't matter if someone doesn't, you know what I mean? And if someone doesn't see it your way, you know what I mean? I think it's a level of insecurity that people have to have everyone agree with them, like what Andrew has. Like, that's why his interview that he did with the journalist went so bad, because he did an interview like to try and address all the claims, and he just came across as a pompous ass without any kind of concern for like anyone but himself. And in his mind, because he's surrounded by yes men and yes women, he thought it went great because he has no concept of reality.
Right. Well, how does he earn money now that he's like out of the family or whatever?
Wow, this is interesting. He basically got left an inheritance by the Queen and by his dad, Prince Philip, the
Oh,
former
so
Duke
he's
of
still
Edinburgh.
royal money.
Yeah, it's still royal money. Yeah, and the taxpayers' money, rightfully so. Anyway, and then this is why he's also in scandal as well. He takes money from very shady people. One of them was related to Colonel Gaddafi, uh, and another guy is a member of the Chinese Communist Party and very high up in Beijing. In the whole system there. And these are guys who Andrew allowed for them to pay him so that they could have him lobby on their behalf in the West.
Mm.
And he would back these people up and say, let them in to like palaces, to parliaments, follow him around, meeting powerful people at powerful parties, where they could get blackmail, and then they could bring it back to masters. And
wow.
This only came alight recently because MI5 had to deport the guy, and he made a big stink out of it, saying, I'm a friend of Prince Andrew. This is outrageous. The UK government are discriminating against me because I'm Chinese. These allegations are false, but like, it's all proven. Like, it's even on like government websites in China that he is a government official, meaning he is a member of the Chinese Communist Party, and that he was in situations where he could have had blackmail. And Mark and Cher. Hello, Cher and Mark, if Mark's there.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi,
Hello.
everyone.
Hey, Alex.
How are
Amber.
you guys?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I said that, Jay.
Oh,
I'm
God,
sorry,
I'm
which I'm a. You
Well, as long
guys,
as everybody's good.
Yeah, we're good too.
I was not supposed to even stay this long, but I'm really excited to listen to you guys. But I don't want to leave just yet, so I'm going to stay another minute. But bedtime's at
Thanks for
10:30.
coming, Alex. It's really appreciated.
Let me ask you guys, what do you think about the hidden true crime stuff? Because look, I was thinking while you were talking, the powerful people thing, right? Like we were talking about how dangerous it is to speak out against that, right? Well, it's not different what's happening there, right? You have a big YouTube channel that has connections, that's connected to these big crime channels, and the family members, small channel that's trying to speak out, boom, or just doing whatever you can to silence people because you think you're this top guy, even though I don't think it's working. But
So I've had issues with Plunder and with Lauren in the past. So I'm blocked on Plunder and Lauren, and it happened during Quentin Simon's case because I went to both Plunder and Lauren, who were saying things that I could prove were right, and I'm validated because everything I said was going to happen happened so far, right? So I just asked her if she could please stop on the Billy Joe thing, whatever, and then I saw some. Let's just say I knew she was privately doing some stuff because I actually saw some private stuff and messages from Plunder, and Lauren was in on that, and it was like going around basically talking shit about me because I said that I will help Billy Joe strike you if you don't fix your shit, you know. But I knew that they were drama behind the scenes. I have issues. Mark doesn't really know what's going on with the hidden true crime thing. I haven't shown him it yet. He's been busy.
it's crazy that so much happens. Like there's so much behind the scenes that we. And Jay, what do you think? Like, that we don't see, rather, because even
Yeah.
this whole thing's been happening and we've had no idea. But what do you think, Jay? Just
For me,
curious.
like I think like it's really like I've said it on like Amber's and I've said it on Amber's. Like I say, it's like she's only annoyed because she's been found out. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
she's not sorry.
100%.
Exactly, sure. She's not sorry for
100%. Yep.
any of what she said, and she's abusing the legal system to
And
try
she's
and take people.
manipulating her husband too. Now
Oh God, yeah.
he wants to act like he's protecting her, but like, dude, I believe what's been going on. Like, I don't know.
Absolutely.
There's a lot, but if you watch her own evidence, I can only get 3 hours, and that's a long time to watch for a live through
Yeah.
the 9 hour live, and then she did another over 3 hours after that. Who and any of us have gone through the same thing, but look at her own evidence. She's the one stirring the pot. She ran up on that girl going into the courthouse and was recording her and ran up on her.
True.
Are you recording me? No, but you're recording her. She was on her phone minding her own business. I don't even think she saw her behind her. So, like, yeah, she's stirring the pot. She's being the fucking, sorry, Jay. She's being a brat.
You can swear. I like swearing here.
So you're obviously not scared. But I'm gonna jump in the chat and just chat with you guys and
No
spend
worries.
time
Thanks
here.
for coming up, Alex. It's
Thank
been
you
really
for
great having
having
you.
me. And you guys, yeah, I'll be listening. And Mark and Sherry, yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. I'd like to talk to you sometime in the future. Like, I'm curious. I got a million questions about the freaking polygraph thing and all kinds of other
Oh,
shit going on,
Oh
but
yeah.
not right now,
thanks,
but maybe one
girl.
day.
We'll come up.
Okay.
Hey,
Yeah, let's do that sometime. All right, you guys. I'll be in the chat.
Okay.
See you, Ali.
Bye.
That was good.
She's
Yeah,
so sweet.
she's great. It's so good to have you up, and like I'd love to hear your thoughts on Prince Andrew, like what you think about him and Epstein. You know.
Well, I mean, there's no denying it. That's he's in too many pictures, and I mean, I don't think Prince Andrew is the only one that should be investigated within the royal family, but
True.
I believe it.
That's true. You know, there are others. You know, and it's you know Charles's close relationship with Jimmy Savile is very suspect, and he's never
Yeah,
sat down and said anything about that ever. You
the
know.
that is that the runner guy, the guy who would
Yeah, he
run
used.
and then go to the
Yeah.
orphanages and take girls, and they were letting them.
Yeah, he would do
Yeah,
charity runs, and he was a
yeah,
DJ and a TV presenter, and
yeah.
like he do charity stuff, and like
We watched his
oh yeah.
documentary. Yeah, yep.
yeah, Jimmy Savile, yeah, he's. Oh, Alex, no worries. It's like I love a bunch of different topics on here. This is how we run things here. Like I'm very ADHD, so like I'm happy with that. Like it's okay. I like it. But yeah, he was like very close to Charles. He was like probably the worst paedophile rapist that the UK has ever had. And
Mm-hmm.
he was doing it in like plain sight. Like it's
Oh,
so bad that like
even
there's
the jokes that he was saying on live TV and everything back then. I'm trying not to cuss. He was pretty much telling on himself.
oh he was. He there's a compilation that like I could put on a community post, but like a compilation of it. One time, like there's a girl on his show, Jim will fix it, where like kids would write in, adults as well, but mainly kids would write in, and like he'd make it so their dream could come true, like meet the
Mm-hmm.
Osmonds, obviously because this was the 70s and the 80s, like meet the Osmonds, or open up the Tower of London or something like that. You know what I mean? Something pretty easy to do for a production. But like people would come. But there was a girl on there who was like 12, and he was like, "Oh, how old are you?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm 12." And he went, "Oh, hello, judge." You know what I mean? Like, what else does that mean other than uh, he's thinking sexually about her and it's worrying him because she's underage? How else could that have been taken? He
Right.
said on TV, and then he won awards for like wholesome, family-friendly shows. When all the while he was saying things like that, he was committing abuse, and he was best pals with Charles, Prince or
Yep.
King Charles now. You know what I mean? And Charles, uh, went to visit him at his home in Scotland. And they had dinner together, and Charles sent him a note on his 80th birthday that says, "No one will ever know what you've done for this country, Jimmy." But what does that mean? You know what I mean? What does that mean? No one will ever know. All the good things that he did, obviously, that was for his own benefit, but all the things he did were known. His charity work, his fundraising and all that stuff, his volunteering and whatever, that was all very known. No one will know. Suggests something that people don't know that he did.
At first, I thought maybe he was taking the children for himself, but now I wonder if he wasn't like the delivery service or something. Like, where was he bringing all them children at?
That has been alleged. That Savile was procuring kids for elites and royals and things like that. And I would agree with you that Savile performed an Epstein-like role where he was a procurer, but he was also an abuser. But Savile was a lot more of a prolific abuser than Epstein, because he only by the fact that he was at it for so long. You know, Savile's first recorded offence was in 1955, and his last recorded offence was in 2009. And the most that ever happened to him was he was questioned. He was never charged with anything ever. So, Savile got like a big, get out of jail free card, I think, basically because he was friends with the royal family. And if something came out about him, it would make them look bad.
Well, he's friends with a lot of people that he could have got in trouble. So
it's just like Jimmy Savile is very similar to Jeffrey Epstein in the way he operated. But I don't think Savile was motivated by any kind of working for like intelligence agencies or anything like that. I think he blackmailed people, sure, but it was to keep them on side for him more than anything else. And Savile was certainly involved with other people and involved in rings and things like that. But he was a different motivation to Epstein, slightly different. But there's other things as well.
You think he's on Epstein's list? He must, if he's
Jimmy
doing
Savile,
that for 59 years.
That has been asked, but the thing is, it's weird because Savile was a face in Britain. He was important to people of power in Britain. But it's also said that it wasn't just Britain. He knew Barbara Bush, funnily enough. Barbara Bush came to Stoke Mandeville, a hospital that Jimmy Savile was very much involved in funding and used to treat it like his own personal playground and would abuse a lot of patients there, young and old. But Barbara Bush and other wives of ex-US presidents, she brought them there for a day, because she already knew him. You know what I mean? And it shows you that he does have connections to American establishment. He met Elvis. He knew the Colonel. You know what I mean? Savile knew both of them. Met them, spent time with them. He met lots of different American people, but he wasn't known by the average American or Canadian. Probably more Canadians because you got more British TV over there, especially in that time. So you probably did get Jim will Fix It, maybe some BBC stuff like Top of the Pops. I think I would guess you probably did somewhere. Yeah, he wasn't a known face to Americans anyway, or Canadians generally, but like people of power, yes. So it's possible that he might have gone to the island because it would make sense because Savile was a very committed Zionist and loved Israel and visited Israel and gave advice to politicians in Israel about government policy, which is bizarre, very bizarre. But yeah, there's certainly a linkage there to this all. That this seems like the establishment is rife with paedophilia and sex perverts, and a big entity that is masterminding, manipulating, exploiting this whole situation is the state of Israel. And that's what I can see, because there's a common thread, especially on Epstein. Like that whole situation was to get like on Andrew and on other people, blackmail on people to make them, toe the line, you know what I mean? And to read from the hymn sheet. And blackmail is a very powerful thing. I think Monica Lewinsky was also sent in to be there for Clinton. Which is, it's a very worrying topic that, supposed allies are doing this, but it's historical. All intelligence agencies do this, Amber. A lot of these political families, as she's so right, Bush family has a lot of dark secrets. Absolutely, they do. Barbara Bush, and there's been all sorts of allegations made about that family and about them as people. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that he led an invasion of a country. You know what I mean? He's the type of guy who doesn't have a lot of emotions. Bush Senior and Junior, but yeah, it's. What do you think about the Israel connection to Epstein? Sure.
I don't think anything of it. This is the first time even hearing of Flow too, but honestly, nothing would surprise me anymore.
Absolutely.
I'm sure every single country's in on it. Anyone who is somebody with some money is doing some sick shit is where I'm at basically these days.
Oh, I completely agree. I
How
think.
did you get where you're at if you didn't do something freaking
God,
terrible?
you're so right. I think I've had this discussion as well with lots of other people. I think in order to get in there, you have to compromise yourself. Like with the David, with that guy, like what that case we were discussing.
Yeah.
I think, in order to get power, you've got to compromise yourself so that you can be controlled, because it's the illusion of power. It's the illusion of choice when you go to vote at the ballot box, because all sides are controlled. You know what I mean? It's the system.
That's what I've been saying. I don't think voting even matters. I've actually never voted in my life. And I told Mark, I'm like, I don't think it actually matters, because they already have everything planned out. If the NFL and all these like sports teams can be so rigged, you don't think the presidential election's not? Like, everything's rigged.
Absolutely.
They already know what's going to happen, and they make us feel like we're important by allowing us to vote or whatever. To me, I don't think it honestly matters.
Amber's so right. My dad used to say, well, your dad's right, Amber. My dad used to say presidents are selected, not elected, and that's so true.
I believe that. Yep, they put the face in that they want for whatever moment in time, what's going on, and that's just what it is. And definitely, it's going to be somebody who did something disturbing.
Absolutely. And so the worst case scenario, if they like break away from what they want, they can destroy them in the public's eyes, and that's better than killing them. You know what I mean? It's like in the Hunger Games where it snowed. If you've seen the Hunger Games.
Yeah, not for a long time though.
Oh yeah, but it's like where Snow's like saying, he's like to Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, he's saying like we have to like destroy the image of her, you know what I mean, as opposed to just killing her, because all that is create fear. But do you know what's stronger than fear? Hope is stronger than fear. He's so right when he says that, because that's the mindset of these people. That's what they're giving us, the illusion of hope, the illusion that we can, by their rules and standards, change things and get out of this, when really we can't. You know what I mean? It's stacked against us. What we can do is not buy into it and not allow them to control our minds. That's what we have the freedom of and the control of. We can control our brains, you know what I mean? And the more we embrace that and the more we expose what they're doing, hopefully in time their powers can wane. But it's going to.
And then we're just crazy conspiracy theorists.
Exactly, but I think more and more now in our world, that's been said less, and more people are coming around to the idea that what we're told isn't the truth at all. It's what they want us to think is the truth.
Yeah. What are you thinking about the David case now then? Because I was so on the side that he was being framed. I was like, no one's going to be that freaking stupid. But then I'm like, wait a minute, even I didn't know who this guy was till this happened. So that's probably the same for a lot of people. And
I
yeah,
I
so
th-
I'm like, this is smelling like Illuminati.
I think you're onto something there. I think you've got a point. I think for him, it was like possibly a way to
Initiation.
initiation to blackmail himself, to entrap himself, so that
If
his
you
music
make it
is.
through this, you're going to be big and you'll
Yep.
have the money and you'll be the next star. If you don't, oh well.
Oh well, yeah. Someone else will be happy to do that and take your place. You know what I mean? And that's how it works.
Exactly.
That's how it works. So it's not the person that's important at all. It's that they'll find some sucker who'll do it. You know what I mean? He'll sing from their hymn sheet. But like that situation with him, like I think it was that it was like a situation where they're like, right, it could be that. It could be that he was being brutalized, you know, with other guys, and it was some kind of mad, like sadomasochistic BDSM party. You know what I mean? And he was encouraged and did knowingly go too far to a point where she died. Even still, she's a minor, so it's already fucked up as is. And his manager's there. You know, other people are there. It was in his manager's car, which is even shadier. And
Yeah.
it's like, what is this situation? I want to know more about the manager and his background and who he's managed before and where he comes from and what his story is. I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, because
And
he's
do
a
a live
creature.
about it, and or you could do a live about it, and I'll jump up. I'd like that. Either way, you know, it doesn't matter to me. It's great. Either way is great to me, and I think that for him, it's either that, like an initiation he's gone too far, or it's like in The Godfather, where you know that senator who's like says, "We don't like you Italians around here," and then they kill a prostitute. And then like get him drunk, and then he thinks he did it, and then like, oh, don't worry, we'll make this all go away, and then you
So
make
it
things
could be
nice and
part of
easy.
that. I was thinking
Yeah,
that if he's like had her around, but somebody else did it at one of
yeah,
these parties and then want to set him up. But then I'm also like, what if he signed whatever you got to sign over and whatever deal for that establishment? And so maybe you don't know what's going to happen, but you do sign something knowing like they're going to, like, obviously, you know, they're going to set you up somehow. And if you
absolutely.
get it through it, then you know, you're a star. If you don't, you don't. So maybe he didn't expect that. But like, I still think that, I mean, come on, he was with her too, and she was a minor, like 13, so he was
Yeah.
still doing wrong. So
Exactly. He's still. That's what we're trying to find out. Like, obviously, what's on trial isn't if he was a good person or not. It's either he was a murderer or not. You know, whether he killed her. And
yeah,
it's have they named him as a suspect yet? He hasn't been even questioned, has he? Like in detail
no,
as a
I'm
suspect.
not sure if he hasn't
Questioned,
been
not.
questioned. I bet he's been questioned, but
Yeah, he
from my
has.
understanding, he's a free man right now.
Yeah, he's been questioned, but not as a suspect, and he's not been named as a suspect. So yeah, there's no restrictions on him, but they're still investigating. You know,
You
it's
know, did you hear Trump say he couldn't pardon Diddy anymore because he's too broke?
I didn't hear him say that, but it doesn't surprise me.
What does that mean?
He's probably trying to say that like he's just saying it. I think just to try and like look like funny or get a news bite or whatever, and like say like I'll only pardon you if you're rich type of thing. You know what I mean? And trying to play up to the image that he's a douchebag because it works well for him, as it gets him support as opposed to loses him support. He knows how to win and play with public perceptions. It's like the people who don't like him, we're never gonna like him. That's the thing. But what he does is with his way, it means that the people who don't like those like extreme kind of leftists all think, oh, he's kind of funny, he trolls them, he's like relatable. So even though they might not agree with him, they like his antics. He's different than any other politician, and that's refreshing to a lot of people.
Hmm.
So that's probably why. And that Amber's like saying, I think his lawyer has been speaking for him and he hasn't been named. Wow, still. Exactly. It's really strange. I think other cases, he would have at least been named as a suspect. But this is bizarre. You know, this is being investigated, you know, in LA as well. And there is obviously this perception that sometimes they go a little easy on stars, the law enforcement there. But who knows? You know what I mean? I'm keeping an open mind, but I'm looking at all avenues, but I have my suspicions, basically. And that's where I stand on that case. But like the last topic I wanted to cover was the NBA betting scandal that you touched on a bit earlier, you know, about like sports rigging. But I have quite a decent understanding of how this whole thing works, because I'm not a problem gambler. I've never had gambling as a problem. I've never it's funny because when I lose, unlike degenerate gamblers, I get annoyed and walk away. I don't gamble more when I lose. When I lose, I'm like, I'm done. This is it. Like, so I don't have that in my brain that says it's a good idea to keep gambling when you lose. It gives me a sour taste and I don't want to do it anymore. So I do gamble, but not degenerately, you know what I mean? Not like a lot. So I understand about gambling and about betting. So I'm just going to get to my notes about it all. Yeah. So there's been people have been arrested in this scandal, the NBA betting scandal, and there's been members of 4 out of 5 of the New York crime families have been busted in relation to this. And so people saying that they've all gone away and they're not like doing anything anymore. This is a blatant lie. These are all like known.
What, that the mob went away?
People try and say that like they're like
That's hilarious.
much reduced, but this is a very high profile case with a lot of money involved.
The mobs everywhere, even in Canada, y'all. They are very much alive. Very, very much alive.
Lots of motorcycle clubs there, I suspect.
Not that I know or anything. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But yeah, there's Terry Rozier from the Trailblazers. He is alleged to have faked an injury so that he could get off out of a game like midway through, and then inform like his ring, the mafia guys, about the tactics that the team were talking about and the way they were going to play, so that they could adjust the betting odds and the rates. You know, if like different points were going to be, you know, if they were going to go harder, there'll be a bigger end point tally. It should be, and if they're going to go more defensive, there'll be less. You know what I mean? So they're giving him inside information, and he faked an entire injury just to do that. And also, former player coach of the Cavaliers, Damon Jones, has been linked to several illegal sports betting instances and illegally mafia ran card games. And this is where we get into why these guys were doing this. So these guys already have gambling problems, and a lot of the time they're either in places or states where they can't go to a casino or the casinos have limits on them, and limits that they don't want to play by. They want to play high stakes games, no limits. And that's why, you know, in these situations, they go to illegal card games, and those are always most often ran by organized crime. And these guys, these basketball players and coaches, have gone to these games to gamble and have a good time. Well, they've been given a tab so they can gamble a lot of money and lose a lot of money without actually having to pay. But then when it's time to pay and they don't want to have to figure out a way to make this look legit on their tax returns and to accountants and things like that, they go and throw a game so that they don't have to pay. And they do things like fake an injury to inform these guys of tactics or point shave or whatever in order to basically pay off that debt. But Scher's just fell off, and Chirimarco fell off. But hopefully either she comes back or everything's okay with her. It might have been just a technical glitch, because I am going to be wrapping up soon. But it is a very interesting situation where, and a lesson really, you know, sportsmen, you know, they have all this money, they have all this excitement, and gambling does go hand in hand with that lifestyle, a fast living, like rock star kind of lifestyle. And these guys get way in over their heads with people that are very dangerous people to cross. And, they get into a spot where they have to pay off money. And that's the only means and skills that they have that they can do it. So, and this is all, they're all targeted out for this. So I think that this current case with the NBA will bring out will expose a lot in regards to the basketball and the sports world. Still massive betting scandals going on. I think a lot of people think that this doesn't affect major sports anymore in America or the UK at the top level, but it does. You know what I mean? And this is experienced. Hi, Roxanne, and exactly, and good. Glad you could join us, and glad. And I agree, Amber. It's like good to expose it. It's very good because honestly, I think. I don't think it's the crime of the century to throw a sports game, but I think it's dishonorable because there's people, your other teammates and the fans, it means everything to them, and it should mean everything to these players. They're paying like ridiculous amounts of money for like an NBA game courtside, or like any kind of an NBA game, a Major League Baseball game, an NFL game. And for the Europeans, a top flight soccer game, football game, or rugby game costs a lot of money. So to think that the guys doing it are not putting their all in, to me, is fraud. It is a rip-off because you've paid under the assumption that these guys are actually going to perform to do what they're being paid to do. And because they haven't, through their own, desire to benefit themselves, it is fraud, so it's dishonorable, but it isn't in the same league as Andrew's crimes. So I wouldn't say that. And it's like sports have been doing that all along, I believe. I agree. I think it's certainly prevalent, and I think sometimes certain outcomes can be fixed, not just for money, but for, I think, political reasons as well. Like you see it a lot in soccer, like places that like Qatar getting and Saudi Arabia getting the World Cup, I think that was all to do with politics, and it happens, and it's a shame that something is, supposed to be so innocent and pure as just a ball game or a game, you know what I mean? That can be, used and abused and manipulated and exploited and made to be so dirty, something that you do as a kid. Become that, you know what I mean? It is very sad, and hopefully it deters other players from doing it. I think that these leagues should do more to actually address players' own gambling issues, because I think it's a massive issue amongst professional sports players that doesn't get addressed as much as it should. They talk about other issues like CTE and addiction problems, but they don't mention gambling as much as the others, and I think that they really should, because it is an addiction, you know what I mean? And it should be, treated as such, But thank you. I'm going to wrap up now, but they don't hold any of these athletes accountable. I agree. It is like Andrew, I'm going to start finishing now, but I'm going to start my outro, you know what I mean? I'm not just going to, end it. But yeah, I agree. My last few points, they don't hold any of these athletes accountable, ATS News says, and I agree, because I think it's like with Prince Andrew, not the same, but similar, where you have this like really big status, and you're put on this pedestal where like you're almost like a god in some people's eyes, you know what I mean? Like you're worshipped by people. They have your name on the back of their shirts, you know what I mean? Like kids idolize you. They play in the yard pretending they're you. You know what I mean? Like that, that's a massive ego boost. And these guys a lot of them will think, that they're beyond reproach, that they can do whatever they like, because it's not everyone who has power. It's not everyone who does it, but it's a certain personality type that when you give them an inch, they will take a mile. And it's usually those people that tend to run afoul of the law, you know what I mean, in some way or another, or morally speaking. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say about the NBA stuff. But thank you everyone for being here this evening for my first live back in God knows how long. It's been great, everyone here, and I'm glad Cher and Alex Erickson could join me, and Amber has been moderating in the chat and has been here, and everyone who's been chatting. It's been great, and thank you for all the people who promoted the live tonight and the links. Amber, Alex Erickson, Cher, everyone. It's really, really good of you all to do this. And no worries, Roxanne. It's better late than never, and I hope you can catch the start of it. There's an interesting discussion about Prince Andrew, and there'll be more lives coming soon. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great evening. And this takes us just to an hour and a half, so I did the length that I wanted to. I'm really glad that everyone could make it here. So buenas noches and peace and love. Goodbye.